Tyler Parker of The Ringer. What's going on with your in-studio podcast? Was that like a parody? Was that real? Was it one time only? Like, what was it?
No, it's a total bit. It's not real at all. The whole like idea, I guess, behind it is that they are social media breakouts for a pod that doesn't actually exist. And so it's the idea is sort of, so like to me, the best version of a basketball podcast is a player podcast. Like the best that like I think a current player is capable of doing the best version of a basketball podcast. They know the most and can be the most engaging and can speak with the most authority and nuance. But I also think that the worst version of a basketball podcast sometimes is also some of these player pods because they are aimless and wandering and seem to be not even geared towards the whole episode, but just like, let's see if we can get one breakout. And so that's kind of the idea of the bit. Whereas, like, what if this was just a really, really bad player podcast, like filled with it's like a guy who is totally insufferable and like can't be helped and has like no real talent to speak of, but is certain that he's got a lot to offer. You know what I mean?
I know there was a bunch of confusion over that, right?
Well, I was stoked about it because
Actually, you know what? For the listeners, like, tell them what it was exactly, right?
Well, basically, like it was the idea is it's called the Parker Tiles Show with Thad Roper, and it's yeah, we released like this like 2-minute trailer saying there was going to be a new pod on Spotify or whatever, a new Ringer thing, and yeah, the trailer itself was just sort of a montage of theoretically, different clips from this podcast that, exists or whatever. And yeah, I mean, hopefully we're playing the bit, pretty close to the vest and not being too ham-fisted about it. So people aren't sure initially if it's a joke. And whenever they hear me saying things like, you know, then it becomes they become very confused, like, wait, this doesn't sound like how a player what is going on here. And yeah, it was just I think we've got some things in there that are incongruous with the traditional stuff that you hear on like a player podcast. And so yeah, sometimes it takes people a second to catch up to the bit, but yeah, we're having fun doing it. We've got some more coming. We've shot a couple more days worth of stuff, and they'll just get released slowly.
All right. So I wanted to talk about Thunder basketball, obviously, with you.
Yes.
And you know what? I don't know if you remember this because it's been a while already. We actually forecasted like so much of what could be happening with this OKC team. Back when we talked last time, we talked about the Giddey SGA fit. We talked about Chet would be the guy to help them turn the corner.
That was right. We talked right before that draft, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We said like, no, we also talked that season after Chet was injured, right?
Right after the flashes, he had the summer league and like gave people a taste, and then right.
Yeah. So I mean, what did you make of the season? What do you make of the SGA Giddey fit? How much did Chet mean to the team? How would you grade the season?
I mean, season is aces, dude. Like it was, like whatever they were projected to win, 45 or something. They wind up winning 57 and getting the 1 seed in the West. I mean, I don't think you can call it anything but just like a pretty big success, especially with Shea getting a second consecutive first team All NBA and really like kind of elevating himself further. You know what I mean? Like this is clearly a 1A dude who's going to be able to be the top scorer on a title team. Like there's no more wondering about that. Chet, like, I mean, honestly, couldn't be happier. He the fit, the way that he and what he can do opened up things for everybody else gave Shea more space to play in, gave Jalen Williams more space to play in. Just the offense as a whole, he lets things breathe a little bit more because he is so often pulling these other bigs away from the goal.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, he just on both ends, how he's affecting things as a rookie. I just felt super special.
Speaking of scenarios, what's your favorite trade scenarios when it comes to this OKC team? I mean, the Hartenstein thing got everybody in New York in a frenzy. What are your thoughts on that? And who else should they be thinking about? Not only in terms of specific players, but archetype of player.
Yeah, I mean, Hardenstein, I'd be pumped about Hardenstein. He just because like I think there's some fun passing stuff there, and he can get out and run, protect the rim, finish, bouncy, just like
Yeah.
plays physical, all the things that you would like out of a five.
Right.
If you are going to run Chet at the four. So it for the right price, I mean, it sounded like, I guess when it got leaked or whatever, they were talking about for a couple of years, which makes sense because they're going to have to pay some of these other younger dudes after that. So it makes sense that if they were going to try to go get him, it'd be a shorter deal. You know what I mean? He was not like back last year whenever everybody was talking about like, oh, are the Thunder going to make a move? Like at the deadline, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? The archetype that me and some of the other like Thunder riders were kind of feeling like they were going to go after was some sort of, Kelly Olynyk type of guy, like a big that can handle and pass and shoot a little bit. And
I guess the highest level of that would be Lauri Markkanen.
That would be great, but it's also like I think Ainge is blowing a bunch of smoke and they're not getting rid of Markkanen. Like he's really good, but clearly not so good that it's getting in the way of them getting good picks. You know what I mean? So it's like,
right.
It just doesn't make it. Them getting rid of him doesn't make any sense to me.
Right.
So I was never like holding out hope for that, but someone in that in a similar vein, like Naz Reid, someone with that kind of ability was always.
I mean, he's probably too good to move off of now too.
1,000%. I mean, if Minnesota would be crazy to get rid of them.
Right.
It weirdly, like after the postseason, I'm not as like hung up on, I think they do need another big that can do some stuff just to give them some optionality in the playoffs for sure, just to give them other ways to play and kind of not so Chet just doesn't get bludgeoned every possession, you know what I mean? But I also think Chet is at his best when he's at the five, and the Thunder are at their best when he's at the five. And it almost makes sense to me for them to try, like they need after watching the playoffs this year, like they need another creator. They need somebody else who can go get a shot, go get a bucket for themselves or somebody else. Like Jalen's going to be that, but he's not quite that yet. And Chet didn't get enough possessions this year to really let his ISO stuff kind of blossom in the ways that you need it to be ready to go whenever the playoffs start, right? And so it's like, I think they need another big wing that can do some stuff off the bounce, shoot it a little bit, and then help on the boards. Like it feels like those are kind of the two things. So, like I've heard people say like Mikal Bridges. I mean, somebody else.
I mean, that's a little unrealistic in its own right?
I don't think that will happen. I don't think that the Nets will try to get rid of him. I'm just talking about things that I've heard people throw out on pods. The one that like another Brooklyn dude who I don't care about, or who I don't hear people caring about like that and like throwing in these trade things, but to me would be a great fit for the Thunder would be someone like Cam Johnson.
Oh yeah.
Just because there's like, you can see him fitting into that offense very easily, and he can guard and hold up, and so it someone kind of in that neighborhood. I think.
All right.
What do you think? Where are you at with him?
I mean, I think I've been high on Hartenstein since I saw him with the Rockets in summer league. Like I always loved his game, so I think he'd be great for them. And then Chet playing alongside of him, I think is a good mix. Talking about like the trades thrown out on pods. I've been hearing a lot of like Klay Thompson, Kevin Herter. You mentioned shooting. How do you feel about like those two guys?
I mean, that'd be like, I don't think Clay's coming to Oklahoma City. Um,
Hmm.
I don't think he would. I don't think they're going to want to pay him what he's going to want to be paid. You know what I mean? Like they got they have
Will anybody in the NBA? That's the question, right?
no, no, but I think somebody will pay him close, right? Like somebody will. I think somebody will throw him a bag, right? Like the Kings will throw him something, or the Pistons or someone like that.
That's important, but I think
Or the
OKC fall.
Magic.
I think OKC falls in the category where Clay might think in his head, let me. I think I could win a championship with OKC. And then I'm gonna prove everybody wrong. Like you got this really great young player in SGA, Jalen Williams ascending. Maybe I could be the missing piece. I don't know if Clay's feeling that way, but I could see him thinking that.
If he was feeling like that, and if his mind was like that, and he was cool just coming in and like whatever shots he gets, you know what I mean? And then like, yeah.
Well, we also another thing is we've written people off that come back really strong after people thought they were done. That's another thing. Like we could see huge Clay games in the future. You never know.
No, I think it's totally possible. It's all about where he's at in the hierarchy on the roster and what he's being asked to do. Like you feel the Warriors sometimes asking him to do things that he kind of can't do anymore. You know what I mean? Or not on the level that he could.
Right.
And he will like his shot diet will both like go down in number of attempts, but just in turn, like that guy would be so damn open on this Thunder team. You think about the number of like corner threes that they generate, this like stuff that whenever all the live ball turnovers that they get, and they get out in transition and stuff like that. Like they I think percentage wise they wound up being, I think by like 0.1% the best 3-point shooting team in the league this season. Clay in Oklahoma City would eat, and I think as long as the legs are right. You know what I mean? Like if his body's back to right, that's kind of the whole thing. I mean, there's not a lot of burst there anymore, but he wouldn't need it if he's basically the fourth option on an Oklahoma City team, you know, and he could stay out there with the second units and kind of run off screens and play some 2-man stuff with Jalen or Chet.
Yeah,
it'd be interesting. I haven't thought about him in Oklahoma City just because it sort of seems. I think every time I think about him and Oklahoma City in the same thought, I almost go into a seizure and like break out in hives after Game 6 in 2016. But that's interesting. I don't think they bring in Herter. Like for what he would cost, because he just doesn't guard. You know what I mean? Like they doesn't want to play guys that don't guard really. You know, like if someone's just going straight Matador out there, they're not going to get a ton of burn. And I think especially so going forward now that like they're more invested in actually winning some games. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe Westbrook's and KD's best chance to win a titles with OKC.
Yeah, dude. I mean, please believe there's been plenty of people talking about like that. Boy, that'd be crazy if that happened. I have no idea what. I think like Russ will do the like. He'll Emmett Smith it and sign a 1-day contract, you know, right before he retires, so he can retire, you know, on the Thunder. I don't think they'll bring him back like to play any significant on-court role. I think that's too explosive, and also just like we got enough dudes on the perimeter now that need the ball in their hands. Like it wouldn't. I'm not sure the vibe would be right, and like that the relationship between Russ and the organization and Russ and the state is so special. I don't think they'd be trying to with that potentially for what would, I think, ultimately only be like minimal returns. Like even if it wound up like, oh, this really worked, like like you could whatever Russ can give you now, you could probably get out of somebody else for a little bit cheaper and maybe a little and fewer headaches. As much as I love Russ, the Durant thing I've
Mm.
heard a bunch of people bring up, and for sure he would fit perfectly. I have no idea how I feel about it, to be honest with you. Like there's part of me that's like, you know, all parties have moved on. Let's stay moved on,
Mm.
and like we don't need to bring in someone that would because he is still good enough, especially offensively, that like you would have to change the way your offense operates a little bit. Like the shot distribution would want, like Dub would have to take a step back, I think. And
Mm.
I
Well,
mean,
Jalen, as much as I think he could actually be a superstar at some point, still, he wasn't ready yet, right?
no, he wasn't.
Yeah, yeah,
No.
yeah.
I mean that like and that was that I mean that's why I said that thing about kind of like after the playoffs thinking we need another kind of big wing, just
Mm.
somebody else that can go get a shot. Because, like I say, I do think Jalen will get there. I
Yeah.
think like the like all the seeds and checkpoints pretty much have been planted and met as far as he's concerned, on both ends of the floor. He just doesn't quite have the like ISO bag yet that he'll need to be able to function like that. And I also think like he needs a little bit more space than Shea needs right now to be able to like maneuver. Like Shea can slink through, these like cracks in the defense that it makes no sense that
That
nobody
guy
should be able to
is
fit through.
that guy is so good, man. And it's interesting, like,
It's insane.
and the thing is like he was strong in the playoffs too. So it's like when your team loses, you kind of forget about the individual effort, right? Like nobody's saying like SJ had a great playoffs because they're not here anymore. But it was great. It was up there.
Dude, he was blow for blow with Luka pretty much the whole
Mhm.
way. I mean, like Shea was probably the best player in that series, honestly.
Mm.
Like you can make that
Mm.
argument, I
Well,
think.
what do you think about the two-way stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it the problem with that series is PJ Washington turns into fucking Glenn Rice, and like Derek Jones Jr. goes bananas and catches fire, and yeah, like they got other dudes going. You know what I mean? And like and the Thunder didn't shoot the ball as well as they had been shooting throughout the season. Like the Mavs, were guarding, and so but it wasn't. Yeah, all that to say, like, I'm with you. It wasn't some situation where like Shea didn't show up. Like he was. Uh, I was I wasn't expecting him to like not show up, but I was pleasantly surprised with how ready he was, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Obviously the Thunder have been great in drafts. And this draft is interesting because it's almost like if you're a real draft guy, you'll say this draft isn't weak. But if but if you
Right.
aren't really a draft guy, if you're like an NBA guy, you'd be like, this is a weak draft. I
Yeah, yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I guess it just all depends on like your perspective, right?
Yeah, I mean, dude, like, and I still haven't even like started really like doing a bunch of digging into these guys. Like, I've still been had my head in the like sand of the NBA finals and stuff, but it it definitely, like, you're spot on in your description of it. It does it like I'm sure as we get closer to the actual day, there will be people putting a positive spin on it, like hey, you could get a serious contributor in the 20s here. You know, there's no difference between guys in the early second round and guys at 10 or whatever.
Jokic got drafted in a Taco Bell commercial.
Sure. Yes. And like I could see that happening for sure. To me, the biggest kind of red flag is that hearing all these people say that basically like the number 1 pick in this draft is the equivalent to like the 8th pick in some of these other good drafts.
Sounds like that sounds like a Bill Simmons take, right? Is that the Bill Simmons take?
I think that probably was, or it was either him or Russillo probably.
Okay.
But it like, or it might have been Kyle, man. Maybe. I can't remember.
One of them. They had a meeting and they talked about it.
Yeah, I sourced. I cited my source. But yeah, I'm glad that this isn't a year where I'm glad this wasn't one of the prime Thunder tank years. You know what I mean? Where you're like really counting on some monster to come available there for you. Some like Chet, you know what I mean? Like you're really hoping that someone is available there that can really, affect some change in the franchise. And it doesn't feel like there's a ton of that. But like I say, I'm half talking out of my ass here because I haven't started doing a bunch of digging yet. But from what I've read and heard, you're spot on.
Tyler, that's a great way to end the podcast. I'm spot on, Tyler, great stuff. You did a super fun conversation as always. Maybe this time we won't wait 5 years before we record. You know what I mean? But
yes, yeah, we'll do it sooner next time.
Where can we find you? Social media, written, podcast, everywhere else?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter still for some reason. If you search Tyler Parker, it's TYLRPARKR. Tyler Parker without the E's. Because there's a bunch of Tyler Parkers out there, man. You got to get creative. You got to get creative with the handles when you're as vanilla as me.
Tyler, great stuff. You're always welcome back on the show. Talk soon.
Always great to see you, buddy.